We're about ready to switch the Singer SE9180 from the sewing side to the embroidery side. So that will mean that we are going to switch out the presser foot to the embroidery foot. But there's one extra thing that sometimes we forget to do. And it's not that you have to do when you embroider, but it is a good habit to get into, is to actually lower the feed dogs. So underneath your foot, sometimes they're called feed teeth by some people, but there are a set of teeth that actually are pulling your fabric through when you sew. So they kind of roll up and through, and that's how you get your stitch length. If you have a longer stitch length, then they move more. If you have a shorter stitch length, they move littler steps, but they can be lowered. So one of the reasons we lower our feed dogs is when we embroider. So honestly, the hoop is doing all the work. It's moving its XY axis, and you don't need the feed dogs actually up because they're just going to be kind of up and down, not doing anything. But what if we could just lower them completely out of the way? So behind the machine, and I'll show you, there is a lever. So it's like right here. You can feel it once you know it's back here, that you're going to slide to that direction. Now here's the tip. Now I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to show you the lever. It might be a little hard, so give it a good push. Okay, it's really hard today. There you go. Now, once they go down, here's the tip. When you go to pull them back, so I'm pushing this way, that they don't actually come back up until you take a stitch. So you could take a stitch just by touching your needle down and up button, and I can see immediately that they're back coming above the throat plate. But if you're looking for them to come back, when you pull that to the direction to the left, they're not going to come up. Just take a stitch or trust the process that when you start to sew, they'll come back up into position. So let me show you two other places that we lower the feed dogs for a technique. So one of them is when we sew on buttons. So it's actually in the buttonhole menu, menu 3. And there is a picture of a button. And when you select it, it just shows that the stitches are going to go back and forth. And you can do this with the feed dogs up, but again, what's going to happen is they're going to go up, 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 and the foot is going to, and it could slide your button, and then you miss the hole, and then you break the needle, you break your button. So if you lower the feed dogs when you use this stitch, no problem. The foot comes down, there's nothing moving it, and it just is going to go back and forth in the holes that you're going and stitching through. Okay, that's number one. Number two is just even back on a straight stitch if you want to do free motion quilting. So we always talk about lowering the feed dogs, and then the fabric that you move, that's where you see all the stippling, or it's the stitches that are used to connect the layers of quilt top and batting and quilt back, and then you can move that fabric in all directions and get fun patterns going through all the layers. Well, once again, you can see because you're moving the fabric in all directions, you don't need the feed dogs preventing the movement of your fabric sandwich. So usually that is done. You can do it with your embroidery foot. It becomes a free motion quilting foot by another name, and feed dogs go down. Now, if you forget, so you're done with your quilting project, you're so excited, you give it as a gift, and it's a couple weeks later, and you come back and you wonder, gosh, why when I sew my fabric doesn't move? I'm having to push it. Well, you might have forgotten to bring those feed dogs back up. So let me show you on the back side the lever that we're talking about. This makes more sense now that you see it. So the lever to lower them, pushing towards the right of the machine, and I did have to really kind of push hard. So if it is hard for you, don't be afraid, just go ahead and give it a good push, and then you can see that the feed dogs are down. When you come back, they click, but nothing happens. Again, you can just turn the machine by hand, or even needle up, needle down, or just start to sew, and they will come right back up into position at no problem. So lower them during those three techniques. If you want to do some like mending or darning, that would be another place you could lower them down as well. But just leave yourself a sticky note that you've lowered them so you don't forget to bring them back up. If you've been learning a lot about your Singer SE9180, make sure you click like on every video you watch, and don't forget to subscribe so we can continue to bring more content to more users who own sewing machines and embroidery machines. Happy sewing!